welcome. My name is Mava Souls. I'm president of Lane County Audubon Society here in Eugene, and we're having a rainy evening. So I guess the positive thing is nobody has to go out and drive in the rain tonight. And we've been successfully having the Zoom programs for our fourth Tuesday program meeting since September. And it's also really wonderful to see so many people that are familiar faces who normally would come to our program meetings. So welcome to you folks. And then also we're happy this month because there's a coastal contingent wanting to join in to hear Ram's talk of his fellow birders over on the coast. And we expect a good number of folks to be joining us from the coast. And occasionally we have folks from out of state joining us. So that's also great to know people are interested in our program meetings. We do have a couple of announcements to make before we move right on into Ram's program. Will just be a couple minutes of announcements. Number one on our announcement agenda is that we're at this point planning to have our Eugene Christmas bird count. As you can see from the slide, it will be the 79th count. This year it will occur on Sunday, January 3rd, which is actually in 2021, but it's still the 2020 count for us. And we will be following strict COVID guidelines. It's going to be a much smaller count probably in terms of numbers of people. We're not going to have a gathering afterwards, which is actually a highlight for all of us, is to get together at the end of the day and have a chili feed. But we will do a Zoom countdown on that afternoon, as that's the plan at this point. And of course, as with many things right now, a lot of plans might be in flux at the time, but we'll keep people posted, and we'll keep things updated on our website and our Facebook page if there's any changes. So if you have questions or want to join in about the Christmas bird count, you can contact Dick Lamster with the phone number and email listed here. Also, home counters this year, which is we'll probably have more home counters than we typically would, because there won't be as much opportunity for people to go out in the field probably, depending on each team leader's choices about how many people they want to join them in cars and physical distancing that they can maintain. But home counters are going to be organized by Marcia, and her contact number and phone number and email is on this list as well. Also, we will have that in the December newsletter. And please contact Marcia with questions about whether your home is in our count circle, because that's the key factor of whether you can participate that way. Also, as far as we know, the Cottage Grove CBC will be happening the day before ours, which will be January 2nd. And Grace Fowler's information is listed there as well. So that is something we can look forward to. Everybody loves the Christmas bird count, and Eugene has a strong contingent. All of the team leaders that are planning to participate have already let Dick know that they're ready to go, and will be scouting and getting their teams together. So we're looking forward to that.
So I just wanted to throw in a word here on something going on right now. I mean, there's so many conservation issues, some good news, some bad news, but there is something being rushed through right now. There's been a fight about the National Wildlife Refuge up in Alaska for decades, actually, with continuous arguments that the area should be allowed for drilling or not. And mostly we've been able to fight back on that successfully. There is now permission for drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife under this current administration. The concerning thing is that the administration just a couple of days ago announced a lease sale. So that's going to make it a little bit harder to reverse things. We're pretty confident that the next administration will reverse this new ruling, but it will be much harder for them to do so if these lease sales are already in place. So I just did want to bring that to people's attention, because it's there's a number of conservation organizations who are working on this. Lots of places you can sign on, add your name, and let people know this isn't something we want to be rushed forward on. So Help Protect Wilderness, you can just Google Arctic Refuge Defense. It's all over Google. It's all over any big national conservation organization, whether it's Audubon, Sierra Club, etc. And they have a place where you can go, add your name, and let the powers that be know that we do not want them to be rushing through a sale on leases for drilling, mining, etc. in this beautiful, vast refuge that supports so much wildlife. So that's it for my conservation announcement for those of you who are interested.
In December, historically, like going way back, we never had a program meeting in December. We kind of took the month off. But then we started co-hosting with the Eugene Natural History Society here in Eugene, a December program, and they always want it to be a bird program. So it's a logical opportunity for both of our groups to come together once a year and co-host a program. And so it will be Friday, December 11th at 7:30 p.m. They do start their programs, start the Zoom program at 7, so people have a chance to get logged on and chat a bit, and then the program with the speaker begins at 7:30. John Marsleff, I don't know if any of you have heard him before. He's a well-known author and researcher at the University of Washington up in Seattle, and he's done a lot of research on corvids, on crows and ravens, and one of his most famous books was about putting masks on his researchers and then having an interaction with crows on campus at UW, and then forevermore those birds would recognize that mask, and whoever was wearing the mask was fair game for the crows. So they have a great memory and they're willing to take action if they don't like you. So anyway, John's a wonderful speaker. This is a new program that we're looking forward to, and so please think about tuning in. I'm sure it'll be entertaining and informative, so we look forward to that one.
Okay, I just wanted to introduce our speaker for tonight, and also the speaker we're going to be having in January, our next speaker. We're going to have Rich Hoyer. Rich Hoyer is a professional bird guide with Wings Birding Tours. He lived in Tucson for 23 years, though he was born and raised here in Oregon, and now has moved back to Eugene. So he's a local fellow. He's well known to most of the birders, and he is full of knowledge about all birds, of course, but insects, butterflies, reptiles, everything. He's just amazing. So we're going to have him, and he's going to talk about bird vocalizations, particularly mimicry with birds. So it should be very interesting. That'll be in January 26th. Tonight, we're going to have Ron Papish. This will be his third presentation with the Lane County Audubon Society. He first took us to the Aleutian Islands, and that was a blast. And then he took us to India last year, and this year he's going to take us to Africa. So we're real excited to have him. He's a fantastic speaker, and he's an artist. And one of the skills you'll see, particularly tonight, will be his photography. This trip, he had his wife along with him, Dawn, and also his brother Yuri. So it'll be kind of fun to see a few more of the Papish family. So are you all ready, Ram? Take over.
We're going to do Unexpected Africa tonight. So I know that a lot of you may be saying, I'm not sure if I want to see that presentation. I've seen lots of lions and, elephants and the big five of Africa. That's why we're going unexpected here. Now, we may get to those things by the end, but we don't only want to look at the expected. All right, so we're going to head to Africa. Here's the African subcontinent, and here's Tanzania. So let's zoom in on Tanzania to talk about where we're going. But Don, don't you think it would be nice for me to thank everyone for attending tonight? Yeah, great turnout tonight. Thanks everyone for showing up, both in the valley, on the coast, and we have some other visitors. That's the nice thing about Zoom. You can invite people from all over to watch. So most people who visit Tanzania fly into Arusha in the shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro. We started our trip by going to the south to Mkomazi and the Usambara Mountains. Now, these are very obscure parks that no one visits. Very few people go there, but then we headed up to the north to these very famous parks, the Serengeti, Ngorongoro Crater, and Tangieri up in this area. That's where most people visit. Okay. Now, growing up for much of my childhood, my grandparents actually lived in Africa. And so, you know, basically from about second grade or so, I would hear all these tales of their adventures in Africa. My grandfather was an avid wildlife photographer. So I grew up hearing about Africa and seeing his slideshows. And so this is a special trip. It's a special family trip and really just a dream trip for us. So here's the crew that went on this trip. We have starting here with Uncle Gary, our guide Douglas, my brother Yuri, my cousin Sydney, that's me, and most of you know my wife Dawn, and Aunt Donna's taking the picture here. So we got around in this modified Toyota Land Cruiser. And pretty much everyone on safari uses this same vehicle with a pop-up top to provide shade, and then the people pop up through the top of this here. Okay, so there's two seasons in Africa. Most people don't realize this, but there's two. One is dust, and the other season is mud. So you alternate between the two. I'd say the default setting is dust, and then you get these big rain clouds coming in, it dumps rain, and you get the mud. So here you see, this is typical of one of the roads we would go on. And here's our guide out here scoping out the best route through this obstacle course. Kind of like going through Whitewater Rapids. You got to check it out in advance and have a plan when you go in. Here's Aunt Donna, and she was very glad she had her window closed while we were going through that last set of mud. Okay. Oh, Dawn's setting up. She wants to watch another screen.
No,
Okay.
I'm going to set it up so you have your potential.
Okay, so I think, you know, we had probably the best driver, Don, because we were always stopping and rescuing other people who got stuck in the mud. Yes. We stayed at a lot of nice tented camps for the most part. Some of these were permanent camps and others were just temporary camps that would be moved every few years. Here I am with my brother enjoying a welcome drink at one of our tented camps. Very civilized, very, very fruity welcome drinks we were given. And you can see here, we're laden with all sorts of photographic gear and harnesses. This is serious business here. There's a nice view from one of our lodges where we could sip our fruity beverage and get oriented. So this is what it looks like out on safari. You see that there's these large openings in the roof, and you pop out, put a bean bag on the edge of the vehicle, set your camera on that, and you're good to go. This is the safari experience right here. Oops. Okay. So I'm sure many of you have experienced this. When you're traveling with family, you have a variety of needs and interests in a variety of ways. And some of us were happy to, you know, stay in just a small pup tent. Others in the group would prefer a 5-star hotel. So, you know, you got to negotiate these things, work up compromises. So I'm going to give out some awards here, Don. And the award for the most rugged, these people would be perfectly happy to sleep under a wet tarp out on the tundra. So the award for most rugged goes to my aunt and uncle, who are, you know, they're a little bit older, but definitely the most rugged in the group. This is my brother Yuri. He came very well dressed. So, you know, he's got the hat here with the matching safari shirt. He bought a nice variety of neckerchiefs to match his mood. Some shades here, a variety of Nike footwear. So he wins the award for best dressed. So, you know, we weren't all that surprised when he actually ended up on the cover of GQ magazine with this, and this is their biannual safari edition. Doesn't that look great? We were ecstatic, let me tell you. Okay, so let's get started here, and you know, we'll start at a very basic level here. The whole Serengeti ecosystem is based on the replenishment of nutrients to the soil. Okay, so we'll start with manure. We'll start with dung, and I'll say there were a number of times where we stopped the vehicle and had to get out and look at the dung. But I mean, it's fascinating in itself, but it was really the dung beetles that caught our interest. So here we have a dung beetle starting to make its ball. Here we go. The dung beetle grabs pieces of material, gathers it together until it has a nice big dung ball. And it rolls this ball of dung sometimes great distances to where it can find soft ground and bury it. There it lays an egg inside there, and the larva eats all the manure. And then when a heavy rain comes, it comes out of that buried state. Now this one is just screaming, I'm on top of the world. I'm telling you. But you know, the reality is the life of a dung beetle is you eat shit and die. Okay, it's not, they're fascinating animals. Okay, so we're going to look first at the thorn birds here. Now, the first place we went in Africa was Mkomazi National Park. Not a lot of big game there. It's a thorn scrub habitat, which, let me tell you, was absolutely fantastic for bird photography. Because of the low shrubby habitat, you get, this is what I like, Don. You get a bird at eye level with a nice blurred background. I love it. So this is the Nubian woodpecker. And this looks a little bit like our song sparrow, but it's actually a streaked seed eater. Now, the other thing I like in this habitat is, quite frankly, I like the thorns. I like the look of thorns in pictures. It's got kind of like this Beauty and the Beast type vibe, the danger next to the beauty. And I find it very appealing. So anytime you can get a thorn in a picture, it's a bonus to me. Okay, so, you know, all these shrubs have thorns on them to prevent browse by various large ungulates, grazing animals. You can see this impala is very delicately trying to eat around these thorns here. It looks like quite a painful process. So look at these spiky, nasty thorns, but then on top of it, you have these galls at the base of many of the thorns with biting ants living in them. So the ants live in these galls, and then the poor impala comes to get these little leaves, trying to reach between these thorns, and the ants come and get the impala on top of these thorns. That's terrible. Okay, so many of you know shrikes like to impale their prey on thorns. So this thorn scrub habitat is perfect for shrikes. And let me tell you, we saw incredible numbers of shrikes in this habitat. That one is that's the common fiscal shrike, and here's the long-tailed fiscal shrike. So these are songbirds with the soul of a raptor. You look at that, that looks like a raptor stare to me. And they're hell on small rodents, but also insects, and they'll impale them on these thorns. Another nice look at a long-tailed fiscal shrike. Now, in North America, you know, the shrikes that we're used to are typically solitary or in pairs. But in Africa, there are these groups of shrikes that they flock. They form flocks and hang out on the top of these thorn shrubs. Here we have a group of the long-tailed fiscal shrikes, and they're up there in the morning displaying to each other, very vigorous, wagging that tail up and down. Looks like they're having quite a party. Okay, this is the white-crested helmet shrike with a nice big juicy caterpillar. And it looks like its chick here is quite eager to get a hold of that tasty morsel. Is this a shrike or a magpie? Ah, it's a magpie shrike. Gorgeous bird, long tail. This one looks like it was a little bit wet. So, I mean, look at those thorns. Oh, I love a good thorn. So this is the very satisfying, the arrow-marked babbler. And the picture wouldn't be half as good without those thorns, just saying. Okay, so this is maybe the most common bird of that thorn scrub habitat. It's the white-browed cuckool. And there were times when it seemed like there was a cuckool in every bush we went by. It was amazing. This is a barbet. It's called the Arnaud's barbet, but you don't really care about that. What you care about is this is a gorgeous bird. Look at those delightful speckles on there. And even better, the red and yellow barbet, quite striking. And these are very active, jaunty birds displaying in these low thorn scrub bushes. See, this was a fantastic place for photography. Okay, so birds of prey know they're cool. Oh, there's some nice thorns here too, but this is a chanting goshawk, the Gabar chanting goshawk, a sleek little beautiful bird. Let me tell you that the raptors in Africa were amazing in this habitat and in the open savanna throughout the trip. Wonderful abundance and variety of raptors. Here's the eastern chanting goshawk in flight. Now this little guy is the pygmy falcon, only about 8 inches long. Another view of the pygmy falcon. And here we have the greater kestrel. Okay, this is the tawny eagle. Looks somewhat similar to our golden eagle. Looks like this one's just had a nice meal. You can see its crop bulging out here. And this bird is the long-crested eagle. I can see why. That seems like a pretty straightforward name. And the, what is this? The white, oh yeah, the African fish eagle. And check out this huge lungfish that it's carrying. Here it landed on a perch. This is a widespread and common species in Africa, anywhere where there's water. And it looks like kind of like a bald eagle with a runaway white head here. Ah, this is the batalua, a very striking raptor with an exceptionally small tail. If I could draw your attention to that tail there. Let me shift to this using this laser pointer here. Yeah, you can see it's got a little tiny tail. You can't even see it. So it's quite a unique bird. Okay, so that doesn't work.
Doesn't?
No, I can't advance it when I use that. Oh boy, Here we go. This is the largest and heaviest owl in the tropics, okay? It's the Verreaux's eagle owl, also called the giant eagle owl, which I think is appropriate. But what really stands out to this on this magnificent owl is its eyelids, people. Look at these fabulous pink eyelids. They really stand out on this huge owl. Perhaps the most unique and iconic bird of prey in Africa is the secretary bird that you see here. It's quite an unusual looking bird. Look at these legs. They're extremely long and skinny, great for walking through tall grasses. And those legs just keep going. I couldn't even get them on the screen. The secretary bird is named for these quill that you see coming off the back of the head there. They looked, this bird was named back when people were writing with feathers. So that looked like a secretary's pen, those feathers coming off the back of the bird's head. And here we have a nice view of a nesting pair of secretary birds. Okay, now many of you know that Donna and I have a number of pet parrots, including lovebirds. So I think it's safe to say we were very excited to see lovebirds in the wild, especially Dawn was very excited to see lovebirds in the wild, and we were successful. This is the yellow-necked?
Yellow collared.
Okay, I call it masked. That's the pet name for it, but it's yellow collared lovebird, and here's the Fisher's lovebird. So this is how it went. We're driving around going on this safari, and Dawn kept yelling out, "Stop, there's lovebirds!" So over and over again, whenever, she knows what a lovebird sounds like, let me tell you right now. And she was always hearing lovebirds. We were stopping and trying to see the lovebirds. But come on, look at this. They're gorgeous. So we would stop at a tree with a lion in it, and there'd be everyone would be looking at the lion, be very excited, and Dawn would be like, "I hear lovebirds in this tree." And I don't think the guide had heard that with such enthusiasm, Dawn. So everyone's looking at the lion. We're looking for the lovebirds, and they're fun to watch. Let's face it.
Personality.
Yeah, they have a lot of personality. So, I was in Africa for a month, and Dawn was there for like 2.5 weeks. But she said that her favorite day on the whole trip was sitting in this chair. I'm in the chair now because she took the picture, but she sat in that chair all day with a book, with a tree full of lovebirds, nesting lovebirds right next to her. She read her book, stopped, watched the lovebirds for a while, went back to her book. She said that was her favorite day on the whole trip. And this is the center of all that activity. Near our tent was this magnificent snag full of Fisher's lovebirds. Now, I should say I spent the whole day there too, taking photographs of these lovebirds. So the wonderful thing about this snag is it's full of cavities. So this whole flock of lovebirds was constantly moving around, searching cavities, fussing and fighting with each other, trying to figure out who was going to get which cavity and who was going to mate with who. Very gregarious. Wonderful lovebirds. So now here's a mated pair, and the way that you can tell the male from female is the female is the one that looks tired. I'm telling you, look, no one here, I don't have to tell anyone which of these two looks disheveled, roughed up, overworked. That's the female, and the male just looks perky and ready to go. I'm telling you. So there's the female in a nesting cavity. They are cavity nesters. And this was my favorite lovebird shot, great action shot. And this is the yellow collared lovebird. Now, most people don't realize this, or Most people haven't really even thought about it, Dawn. But lovebirds actually, as hard as it is to believe, not everyone thinks about lovebirds every day. But lovebirds generally actually do their foraging on the ground, and you can see these. This pair is munching on some grass seeds. Okay, so part of the action on this snag that we spent a day watching was the predation by the ultimate nemesis of the lovebird, the harrier hawk. So this bird is perfectly adapted to be a predator on nesting lovebirds. Look at this tiny head, great for probing into crevices. And look at these long legs and long, thin legs. And I understand they're able to adapted for probing into crevices and cavities. I think the guide said something like they could contort that little hand to reach further and further up after those poor lovebirds. Okay, so here is, you can see the harrier hawk is checking out this cavity here. These are some Rupel's long-tailed starlings attacking it. We didn't see the lovebirds attacking too much, but a variety of other birds came in and attacked that.
It was definitely an active cat.
Yes. So here you can see there's that harrier hawk with its leg all the way up into a cavity there. You can't even see that leg. It's going way up in there. And here it is pulling out the nest of a poor lovebird. I think we were looking at a lion when you saw this. Yep. Okay, so hey, look, check this out. We got the Fisher's lovebird here in a bush with all these other gorgeous species of birds, and we got thorns on the bush. Okay, for Don and I, this is a very exciting picture. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about it. Okay, so this is the Myers parrot. There's not a whole lot of diversity of parrots in this part of Africa, but here's the Myers. And we saw them several times in these wonderful sausage trees. And I can't figure out why they're called sausage trees, Don. Is that, oh, okay, I can see that there, yeah. So there's the Myers parrot is eating that giant sausage-shaped fruit hanging from the tree. Now, I'm just saying, Don changes our parrot's water like twice a day. So we saw this parrot land here and we were like, don't drink the water. And I'm like, oh, that just seems like a bad idea. Okay, this charmer is the red-bellied parrot. And I realize it has an orange belly, but it's called the red-bellied parrot. And this is a shot of that parrot chomping on a juicy fruit. We got the juices squirting out. Now that's an action shot right there. Okay. And here's a picture of that same species with a very messy beak. It's chomping away at some nice ripe fruits. And I love a berry in the mouth and the color of the fruit matching the color of the feathers on the bird. Now, Don, I think that people are actually interested in which photos I like the best. Okay, so I'm just sharing that and why I like them. Okay, so I mentioned we're all in a vehicle together. And in order to look at any wildlife, we need to stop that vehicle. So it becomes kind of a quandary, how much to stop and what to stop for. And I must say, I think that I was very much dominating the stopping. And often for some of my favorite birds, hornbills.
Okay, he says stop using the
What?
pointer to point at things. It's
Oh, they can see
distracting.
that?
Your
Okay.
descriptions are good enough.
Oh, okay. You can see what they can see that. Okay, so this is the red-billed hornbill, a delightful species. And in that thorn scrub habitat that I was talking about earlier, we would see like 100 hornbills a day. It was absolutely wonderful and staggering. And let me tell you, I wanted to stop for every hornbill. But particularly my aunt was not as enamored with hornbills as I was. And so, you know, I saw my share of hornbills, but I would have liked to stop for everyone. I mean, that's just how it was. I mean, look at this behavior. We got them dust bathing here. We have these hornbills. This one's different species. It's the Vanderdeckens hornbill. And this is after a rainstorm. The drowned rats here, but very amusing birds. I love them. Now, actually, everyone was willing to stop for this one, the southern ground hornbill. They're huge and just magnificently grotesque. I mean, they're very large and they travel in these family groups. Here's a whole family perched together in a snag. This is a nice portrait of a Vanderdeckens hornbill. And this hornbill seems to have a leg growing out of its back. So a very strange position that this particular individual has. I think it's trying to, birds do this. Okay. This is a gray hornbill with a very large grasshopper here. I mean, this isn't a tiny bird, but that is a huge grasshopper. And this is one of the 8 species of hornbill that I was able to see on this trip, which I'm very pleased with. Okay, so this is the black and white casqued hornbill. Interesting fact, whenever you see a hornbill, I believe this is true, with pink around the eye, that's the female. The males don't have pink around the eye. So this is the casque in the name of the black and white casqued hornbill. This is a forest dwelling species, and this is a young female, hasn't developed the full pink around her eye, but she's exploring a cavity here, looking for a place to nest. Okay, so we covered the hornbills, but the other bird that Don just had to stop for anytime there was an oxpecker. So this is the red-billed oxpecker on an impala, and they poke and probe around on a variety of large mammals. And here we have, they're poking around getting insects off of this is on a giraffe,
Ticks.
Don. Yeah, so they get ticks. And look, I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but I don't know if this is an oxpecker or a fly catcher. Look at all these flies, it's ridiculous. So I know that Dawn appreciated oxpeckers. She wanted to stop for every oxpecker, but it seemed to me that from the mammals themselves, the oxpeckers were underappreciated. Here you can see this giraffe with its tongue out trying to push out that poor oxpecker that was just innocently trying to peck around its teeth. I mean, come on. Now, if you look closely, you can see why there may have been some animus toward the oxpeckers. Whenever one of these birds found a sore or opening on one of these mammals, they would peck and peck at it and keep that wound open. So they could drink the blood of the mammal, the vampire pecker. Here's an oxpecker probing into a water buffalo ear. And this is the other species of oxpecker, the yellow-billed. And you can see this old sore that I'm sure these oxpeckers kept open longer than it should have been. So here's a black rhino. And let me just tell you that black rhinos are extremely rare. You don't just go driving around the Serengeti spotting rhinos. They're a big deal. And this is in Ngorongoro Crater. And every individual rhinoceros there is tagged and closely monitored. So if one of these rhinoceroses goes out of the crater, a team of biologists apprehend it and bring it back into the crater to protect it. Because if If the animal goes out of the crater, then it's vulnerable to poaching. But when we saw this is the female and here's the male, we saw these rhinos and Don stung. It's covered with oxpeckers. Oh my God. You get the point. Okay, here we go. These are the pretty birds that everyone could agree to stop and take a look at. This is the iconic and gorgeous lilac-breasted roller. And this is the European roller, a migrant that comes down from Europe. And this species stretching its wing, another beautiful bird, the rufous crown roller. And they get their name by their habit of rolling over in flight. So they'll be flying along and they'll tip over and over, and we occasionally saw them doing this. Another beautiful group of birds we all love were the bee eaters. Just beautiful. This is a pair of little bee eaters. And here's another migrant. This is the European bee eater. And the red-throated bee eater. This one I only saw once on the whole trip, and I think it's just a gorgeous bird. And to answer your question, yes, they actually do eat bees. And here we have I think these are rufous-breasted bee eaters enjoying cinnamon-breasted, enjoying a nice fat bee. So this this is a blue-browed bee eater. It seems like there's something wrong with it. It was yelling, "Help me." Actually, it was just sunning itself. So we'll move on here to look at some kingfishers. This is the pied kingfisher, beautiful black and white species. Now, pied kingfishers are usually found near water where they'll rest on a branch and look for fish, or they'll hover above the water. Here's a pair of them. So this is actually in Uganda between two large lakes. There was this channel with just incredible numbers of pied kingfishers. And, you know, normally they nest in, kingfishers build a burrow in a muddy bank to nest in. But okay, just take a look at this. Look at that. That's incredible. This bank is like Swiss cheese. It's just full of these kingfisher burrows. I've never seen anything like it. And just look at the abundance of kingfishers along the banks of this waterway. Now we'll go into the papyrus swamp and see the beautiful and tiny malachite kingfisher portrait. And here it is with a small fish. Now, now I don't know if you realize this, but there are a lot of species of kingfisher that don't have anything to do with water, and this is one of them. It's the street kingfisher. It lives in very arid, dry areas, doesn't eat fish. And Don, did you know the field guide called this bird dumpy? It was the description was a dumpy kingbird, a dumpy kingfisher, and I was personally insulted by that.
I am too.
Okay. So here are a pair of these kingfishers displaying, giving their trilled calls and waving their wings around like crazy. This handsome devil is the woodland kingfisher. And here's that same species enjoying a very large moth. Again, they don't only eat fish. And another shot of the woodland kingfisher. Okay, another very pretty bird. We're going to look at sunbirds now. And this is the male golden
Donna's favorite.
golden winged sunbird. Yes, we all play favorites, and Aunt Donna always wanted to see more sunbirds. I think that's safe to say. So this is the magnificent male on a bee balm. And this is oh yeah, Don's reminding me that this is on a poinsettia. And yeah, Christmas is on the way. But, you know, we've seen this several places in these tropical kind of subalpine climates. The poinsettias grow like trees, and they're like 15, 20 feet tall. So here, this is the double-collared sunbird enjoying some nectar from a poinsettia. And whew, Look at that, beautiful malachite sunbird. And here's a nice, interesting color combination. This is a variable sunbird. And to me, those different it's a young bird, so it's not, you know, reached its full adult plumage yet. But to me, those little splashes of color on that bird are really working. Yeah. So Africa has a wide variety of weavers, and many of them have a similar color pattern. So you open the field guide, it's like looking at Impedinax flycatchers or something. There's pages of these weavers with this similar pattern of the black on the face and the yellow body. This one is the Vitelline weaver, and it builds a nice tight nest. So you can see it pulling those grasses very tight, and then there'll be an entryway near the bottom that they slip into. And this is that same species early in the process of building its nice tightly woven nest. And these are only loosely colonial. Other species form dense colonies like this village weaver. You see, I know what you're thinking, looks like the same weaver.
Black-headed weaver.
Black-headed, also called the village weaver. It has two names. So yeah, these are actually found, you know, right in towns and yards, and they form these dense colonies. But you know, this nest is not as good as that last one, and you know, it's nice, but okay. So not all weavers form these elaborate nests. These are the white-headed buffalo weaver, and they're a large weaver, and they're a very prominent bird on the savanna. Pretty showy, and there's nothing else that has that bright white color combined with the orange or red on the rump and undertail area. And this one looks like it's found a very significant caterpillar. Okay, here's another white-browed sparrow weaver, and this is one that would hang around near people in camping areas. And the same with this species, was unafraid and common around people, the speckle-fronted weaver. Looks like it's enjoying some grass seeds. Okay, time for some dick pics. And you see, Don, what the thing is before I went to Africa, I thought that dicks would be really shy and hard to see. But in fact, they weren't. We saw many dicks, and they were just out there, and they weren't all that shy a lot of times. Now, I think that I thought they'd be tough to see just because they look good to eat, let's face it. So
Little and vulnerable.
little, they look small and vulnerable. They're like almost like the rabbit of the Serengeti.
Yeah.
Okay. So very cute. You can see they have a very incredible nose, and this one even looks like a very skinny tapir. You see that nose extending down? And okay, so this one's got its nose off to one side, and then this one, I don't know, it's like it's never seen a tourist before. It's got the eyes and the nose going the other direction. Wonderful animals, and we were fortunate enough to see them quite regularly. Look at the eye on that, come on. It's huge, yeah, it's like a princess. And this, in fact, is this particular dick's headshot that it sent into Disney to get a role in the next film there. You know, maybe another Lion King or something. Okay, it's time to get serious and cold blood. We are going to look at cold-blooded animals here real quick. I didn't want them to be left out. So this is the colorful agami lizard, a monitor lizard. And look at the teeth on that. This is the famous Nile crocodile. And another look at that scary animal. So I want to tell you something, that before this trip, I had a very negative view of mongoose because I've been to Hawaii and other areas where they've been introduced and they're deadly to the native bird populations. But in Africa, in their native habitat, I couldn't help but really like these guys. They're really cute and interesting to watch. This is a dwarf mongoose. And the dwarf mongoose nests in large family groups inside termite mounds. And that's what we're seeing here. And here they are popping up. There's an adult with a baby popping up out of that termite mound. There you go. Very cute and not all that shy. They're used to people. They'd come out. This is the banded mongoose carrying a baby. And let me tell you, these go around and forage on, a variety of animals. I know they're hell on birds, but they're cute, Don. Okay. And here's I mentioned they travel in large family groups, and here's a very cute picture of some of these, the whole group traveling with the babies. Okay. Now I mentioned we spent most of our time in that modified Land Cruiser, but we did go on a walking safari. So let's check that out. This is the beautiful landscape of the Serengeti that we walked through. Those piles of granite stone that you see in this image are called kopecks, and they're very important to the habitat. Okay, here's Dawn and Yuri walking through that beautiful landscape.
Dawn doesn't have her GQ look.
Oh, Dawn says she didn't make GQ, so she looked good. I'm saying, but it can't match up. So this is we were accompanied by a member of the Dorobo tribe, one of the last groups of people who live entirely off the land as hunters and gatherers. They have a large homeland to the south that's protected for their use. And we were very fortunate to be accompanied by a member of their tribe. And you can see here, this is a poison tipped arrow that he was carrying. So he had his bow and arrow. Here we go. And we thought it was very hot, but he didn't. He was wearing a warm jacket, which was just killing us, I'm telling you. And I said to Don, it's not hot until he takes his jacket off. Okay, is that fair? We were also, when you do a walking safari, you're required to be accompanied by a ranger with a very large gun. So here's our guide with our tracker, figuring out what animals have used the river recently. So the reason that these walking safaris are dangerous, particularly in these long grassy areas, is that the dangerous animals can hide from your view very easily. I don't know if you can see in this picture, but there is a water buffalo there, and that is a very dangerous animal. In fact, our ranger said that this is the animal he was most afraid of. And they're heavy, they're very aggressive and mean, but we didn't call them water buffaloes. We, just for certain animals, the Maasai, or I should say the Swahili, to correct myself, the Swahili word just seemed more appropriate. So we always went with the Swahili name Mbogo. So whenever we would all, Mbogo, it was, let's face it, it's fun to say too. So we always use that. No one ever said water buffalo, not once. Okay, so here, this is, it used to be Cape Buffalo.
Oh,
it was
right,
changed to
right.
water
That's
buffalo.
right.
We don't like either one. It's Mbogo.
I like
So here's a female. They do enjoy their time in the water. Here's an older and a younger individual. And I must say, look at this one down here, this older individual. It's got a dour expression, somewhat disheveled, got their eyebrows, a grumpy, sullen expression. It reminded me of someone. I just see myself in these animals sometimes. Okay, the other cool thing about Mbogo was you had to look at them just for bird watching purposes, because there were all a variety of birds would land on this species. We've already seen the yellow-billed oxpecker, but then here's one with a cormorant on it. And here we go. We got a kingfisher, thinking that this animal is a very nice perch. Okay, this bird is we were looking at this, spotted this bird. It's a common sandpiper on a small rock. And then wait a second, this isn't even a small rock. This happened to be a hippopotamus. I don't know if that's a hippopotamus. We thought it was here it is surfacing. And we were fortunate enough to see, have some wonderful experiences with hippos. This is the famous hippo pool of Serengeti National Park. It just, for some reason, it attracts huge numbers. It's an excellent water source, and large groups of hippos congregate in this pool. And we insisted on going back and checking them out a second day because they're endlessly fascinating. But I will say they're also quite dangerous. They are very aggressive and very large and protective. And I felt a little uneasy at times. It's better when they're in the water like this. But you can see they have some incredible teeth. So let's take a look at this. Now, I don't know. These teeth look like lawn darts to me. They're just sort of randomly scattered around in the mouth. And you'd think that they could do a lot of damage with these, and they can. But they aren't actually used for feeding, these large teeth. And you know, most people think hippos, they spend the day eating aquatic vegetation or something, but that is totally not true. Hippos are just grazers. They go up, they're nocturnal, and they spend most of their diet consists of grazing on grasses. You'd never guess that. And they're mostly just using their lips to tear up those grasses. Here's one with a few stems hanging out of its mouth. So before we started our trip, we all sat around the table and our guide asked each one of us to say what we wanted out of this trip. And what Dawn mentioned, it was surprisingly, she wanted to see an oxpecker on a baby hippo, is what she said. And the guide said, no one has ever asked for that before. But you can see why. This is very charming. And, you know, for some time we had only seen hippos in the water. We were very eager to see them walking out of the water like this, a mother with its baby. Now, when we did see them on land, you can perhaps see in this picture, it looks like this hippo is sweating blood. It's got this red fluid dripping off of it. So interestingly, what's going on here is the hippo excretes a mucus-like substance to protect its skin. It's got very delicate skin and it's protecting it from sunburn. And as soon as that liquid hits the air, it turns red. And it really just looks like it's covered with blood. That's just a nice portrait of a big, healthy hippo. Okay, so this warthog is an older male with some nice big tusks. Check this out, Don. He's not even bothering to stand up. He's just like, I'm just gonna get down here on these legs and eat down here where the grass is. So here we have a warthog female with its baby. And we did see some lions actually hunt down and prey on warthogs. They're seem to be one of the favorite foods of the predators of the Serengeti. And so they're always very wary.
It was a cheetah.
A cheetah?
Oh, no, it was
lion.
lions. You're right,
Okay.
it was.
And you see, this is unexpected. We haven't showed any lions.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I will reveal that we see them later. So here's a warthog. And what they would do, and other animals as well, is they'd hang out around the giraffes. Because let's face it, giraffes are very tall and they can see the lions and other predators before anything else can. It's very smart. So here's a warthog peeking out from behind a walking watchtower. And that's what these giraffes were. Yep. So here's some just giraffes on the landscape can't be beat. They're just, nothing's more African to me. Here's a giraffe with a baobab tree, these amazing, huge trees. Yeah, they're fantastic. Very thick trunks. And here you can see this giraffe working around the thorns on this acacia tree to browse. And here delicately reaching with that little tongue to try to get those little morsels off of the tree. And they do have a very tough tongue that enables them to work around those thorns. here we are in the middle of the day. I mentioned giraffes are tall, so they have to find a very tall tree to get under to enjoy some shade in the middle of the day. Yeah, it does get very hot out there on the savannah. And this is just, to me, a rather amusing looking giraffe, getting a little shade. And throughout this time, we were, you know, felt bad for a lot of animals, how many flies there were on them. Yes. And I do have my buffalo tail here for swatting away flies. I thought I'd bring that. This is from the Mbogo. We got the tail here. Very useful. Okay. And these are all Maasai giraffe that we saw. And these individuals are actually fighting. It doesn't really look like it, but you can see here they're, this actually looks like they're cuddling or something, but they're actually fighting. And that big swoop that they can make with that long neck, the impact is actually very great. And they have some other moves here. This one got its head underneath the other giraffe, and it's actually attempting to flip its rival over onto the ground. It's pretty rough stuff, actually. And here they are, one may whack the other, and they get their necks all wrapped around each other. And most people don't realize this, but this is actually, observing this is how the pretzel was first invented. Had you?
No,
You hadn't heard that. Okay, good. Okay. We saw a lot of elephants on this trip, but there were a few individual elephants that really stood out and were very memorable. This is one of them. This is a giant male tusker in Tarangire National Park. And you can see its tusk is so long, it disappears down into the vegetation. And of course, it just had the one tusk that really made it stand out. Now, seeing a tusk of this size is very rare because the elephants with the longest tusks have largely been removed from the gene pool. And some elephants in Africa don't have tusks at all now because the genetics that tusks has been eliminated. Now this female was just wonderful. She kept playing with this bone. I don't know if you can see the bone up on top there, but it's an elephant bone. And she kept it was just absolutely an animal at play. It had this bone and it kept rolling it off its back, flipping it around, and over it would hold this thing and roll it around off its back and pick it up again. So this is another very memorable elephant, Don. We were just calmly watching this herd, and they came toward our vehicle, and this one charged us, and it did like a false attack and trumpeted very loud, and our guide said, "Don't move, don't take any pictures." I got this one, but I mean, it was legitimately scary. And I had some new respect for elephants after that. So elephants drink 50 gallons of water a day. And here you can see that there's a baby elephant and then an even younger baby. We love the baby elephants. They're so cute. Here we go. Yeah, we got the babies there drinking out of the river. Now, you think that baby elephant is cute? You got the pink tongue. It's cute, but I think this one's even cuter. Come on, look, the smile on that. We're big fans of baby elephants here. And elephants are big time mudslingers. You thought the election was bad. I mean, so I don't know if you can see this, but this one is throwing up here. There's big piles of mud. They sling it on themselves too to cool down in that hot sunny day. And after they're done with the mud bath, they like to go and rub on these trees. So that's it for elephants. Here's in front of another magnificent baobab tree. Okay, so the greatest wildlife spectacle on Earth is the Great Migration. We're going to take a look at that. Here we go. This is a map of the Great Migration. It's a huge herd of hoofed animals that go on this 2,000-mile route each year to go where the grazing is best. And these are wildebeest on the move, and they get in these trains, these single or double file groups, and follow each other to avoid resistance of the grasses. And here we are. This is the plains of Ndutu, which is a wonderful short grass prairie. And at the Ndutu area, you're allowed to drive wherever you want. So you can just drive out into the middle of this herd of wildebeest. We are talking about 1.5 million wildebeest, accompanied by 500,000 Thompson's gazelle and 200,000 zebras. Okay, look at this density here. So you're in your vehicle and you stand up and you look around in every direction, 360, this is what you're seeing. Endless herd as far as the eye can see. And I remember looking around, I'm like, yeah, I can believe this is as many people as there are in Portland. That's how many animals I'm looking at right now. It's just endless and extremely impressive. The individual wildebeest is a rather odd looking animal, and so is its calf. You can see even at this age, its eyelashes are extremly long. It's got these, it's unusual looking. Look at that nostril. Anyway, they're very abundant. 150 million of them go on this migration. Here's one charging around. They were acting goofy and doing a little mud wallowing, getting some of the grasses on its antlers here, or those horns, excuse me. And here's a nice dense herd of zebra that I appreciate. This is a nice time for a dust bath here. I mentioned this must have been the dust season as opposed to the mud season. And I mentioned that these are the short grass prairies as opposed to the long grass prairies of the Serengeti. And you can see a herd that big really chomps down the vegetation. A nice baby zebra for you. Very cute. Here's some zebras fighting each other. And another pair, we'd often see them doing this, just resting their heads on each other. And I mentioned a large number of Thompson's gazelle accompany the Great Migration. Here's a couple of gazelles fighting. I wanted to have an opportunity here to show you a few other gazelles. These don't take part in the Great Migration, but they're gorgeous. Here's an impala, a male impala. They typically have, there's usually one dominant male impala with a group of female impalas. That's the female. And here's a group. This is actually on that walking safari where we got very close to some herds of impala. And a nice herd of impala in a beautiful landscape with those kopecks, the small mountains of granite in the Serengeti. Some water bucks for you. This antelope is called hartebeest, and it has a head, an unusual head, somewhat similar to a wildebeest, and a very attractive topee here. So there were a number of other birds that followed the Great Migration. You can see here the wildebeest and so forth off in the distance, but for a little drink of water there. We have an amazing array of storks. We have the marabou stork and I think it's called the Adams stork.
Oh, Adams.
Yeah, they're also so-called great adjutant. But let's take a look at this guy. This is not a pretty bird. I think that most people would agree that this is one of the uglier birds out there, but quite robust, shall we say. It's got this huge gular pouch hanging down here. They're quite fond of joining kills on the Serengeti and chomping down some, scavenging on some carcasses. There's one enjoying a nice snack of raw meat. And here, these guys have found a stinking corpse inside a small body of water. And that's just the kind of birds they are, let's face it. Here's a nice look at, here's one is fighting off a jackal for a scavenged carcass. Okay, and this is called the Abdim's stork. I struggle with that name, but these are they're very common, and they tend to congregate in huge numbers to gorge themselves wherever there's food aplenty, shall we say. Okay, I'd never heard of this species, but there are tremendous numbers of wattled starlings that follow the Great Migration or congregate around these huge herds. Look at this. There's just bushes. It seemed like there were endless numbers of these wattled starlings. I had never heard of them. Here's a nice male. Yeah, quite distinct looking. And Don, I'm a sucker for a good wattle. Okay, I admit that, but they're quite an unusual looking species. All right, it's time to enter the Vulture Cafe.
Hopefully
Yes.
you've all had your dinner.
Yes, hopefully you're not eating dinner now. You've eaten. That's good. We're going to check out some vultures. Here they are flying into a carcass. And this is the Ruppel's griffin. And just magnificent birds to watch fly in and land in dramatic fashion. They're very showy, always showing off for each other. There's some intimidation games here involved.
Now, not everyone on our trip wanted to hang out and look.
Okay, so let me just tell you that I wanted to spend all day at these kills because these are fascinating birds. It's constant action. There's all sorts of stuff going on with these vultures, but there is an odor involved. And yes, I was going to mention that not as many people were enamored with these kills. So this is a fresh zebra. And when the Ruppel's griffin and other species arrive, they're not able to penetrate the hide of this large mammal. So they have to enter through the orifices to get to the meat. So here are the mouth, the eye, and yes, the anus. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. So here we have the vulture pulling out the tender edibles. Like I said, not everyone enjoyed it. I found it endlessly fascinating. So here we go. Not everyone wants that type of entry. So they have to wait for this other species. This is the lappet-faced vulture. And notice it has a very heavy beak, and it is actually able to rip through the hide of that zebra so they can all enjoy the goods within. And they have to wait for this guy to show up. But a lot of people don't really enjoy these fluffy thighs on here. Did you notice that?
Pantaloons.
They're like pantaloons on it. So this is a fantastic vulture right here. Lappet-faced vulture. And here is a lappet-faced vulture glamour shot. Look at this. Fuzzy. You had to go to a studio to get this done. So after this beefy vulture comes along, everyone can plunge their whole heads in and get nice and bloody. And let me tell you, when the getting's good, the fights break out. Here's a nice shot of a griffin. And notice, it's got some guts on its face. That's okay. What I wanted to show you are these bare patches. Not only the head is bare, but some areas on the chest as well. Now, this is the last vulture species to dine. It's the hooded vulture, and it's the bone picker. It's the smallest and weakest. The other birds will chase this one off. In the end, the hooded vulture comes in and gets what it can. So here we go. This is incredible, people. Our guide said never in his, 17 years of guiding full time had he ever seen vultures eating a lion. And no, a male lion, a king of beasts, no less. So this was a very rare privilege to get to see this. And one of my favorite shots, a unique shot from the trip, to have the griffin acting as the new king of the beasts.
Yeah.
Okay. And another scavenger is the spotted hyena. Always plays the villain, I might add. It's a strange looking animal. Look how long these forelegs are and how short they are in the rear. We don't understand how they can run so fast. This individual we called Stumpy, It only has 3 legs, but it was actually the dominant hyena, and it was beating up on all these other ones. It was doing just fine with 3 legs. And do fight a lot. I can see why they're cast as the villains. But here's a spotted hyena after a nice dust bath. And another portrait. This one looking playful and very dog-like, really, as it's taken a nice, refreshing mud bath. Yeah, this one's got those flies too. You can see its ear is very dog-eaten. Nice portrait. Our last scavenger that we'll take a look at is the rather graceful-looking black-backed jackal. Okay, a view to a kill. Now, yeah, as we land in Africa, we get accustomed to the environment and figure out how to tap into the telltale signs. And before long, we were able to look for the signs that would help us spot the lion. Here we go. This is what you look for. A massive number of safari vehicles wherever there's a lion. And this is in Ngorongoro Crater, where there's some heavy use. And so we would say, forget it. Let's just come back later after all these vehicles have moved off. So we do that, come back and watch these lions mate very vigorously for a long period of time. So lions are the sexual athletes of the animal kingdom. They mate every 20 minutes for days at a time. Am I right about this?
4 days.
So, I mean, for 4 days? But I'll tell you, there was a great deal of regularity to the mating. It would be every 20 minutes. You could set your watch by it. So we went for like 3 rounds of this. And then I turned to Don and I looked at my watch and I went, hey, you want to stay for another round? I think we did. So here's the male late in the day. I don't think any additional explanations needed there. But I did mention in Ndutu, we were able to drive wherever we want, you see, so we could explore areas with no other safari vehicles around. And while we were doing that, we did come across a group of 3 magnificent male lions. Looked like this one had done some fighting, and this was actually right next to that carcass of the other lion, speculating that these 3 may have killed that one. At any rate, these lions were lounging around. We were enjoying some close-up views of them when off in the distance we saw these 2 little wildebeests. And we said, hey, what if those little wildebeests came walking over here? That would be big trouble for them. So we stayed in the vehicle and just see what would happen. And this is a portrait of a lion stalking its prey. So it latched onto these poor little wildebeests, and we were able to observe the king of beasts attack. And here's that massive, you just can get, we just got such a sense of the power and majesty of this lion as it grabbed this poor little wildebeest out in this large salt pan and carried it back to the brushy edge. Here it is looking over at the other wildebeest and thinking about, maybe I could get 2 of them in one run here. But it desisted and continued over to the brushy margin where it stayed with this little young wildebeest and licked it and caressed it for 20 minutes, almost lovingly. And our guide also said he'd never seen this before. But, you know, cats play with their food, but it all seemed so gentle until the lion went ahead and ate the animal alive. And we were very close, and this was absolute. It was crying, and it was wonderful and brutal and terrible at the same time.
It's just kind of a tough ending with the foot.
Tough ending? Yeah, that's life on the savannah. Okay, so, and then actually what happened was the tawny eagle saw what the lion did and say, hey, I think I could take one of these baby wildebeests too. So there you go. There's that tawny eagle chasing the wildebeest. Now, away from the Great Migration and the bounty, it's tough living for a lion, and a lot of times they would climb trees to try to spot prey. And we did get to observe one with its cubs up in a tree, spot a warthog, slip down, stalk the animal, and it was able to apprehend the whole warthog family. It would get one, kill it, drop it, go for the next. Here's the cute lion cubs, and whoo! I didn't take this picture, Don. This was Yuri. My brother Yuri had a better angle. You remember him, GQ? Yeah. So he got this wonderful, scary shot of this lion from where he was sitting. And we will move on to the fastest of the fast. You all know what I'm talking about, the cheetah. But the question is, can you see this cheetah? This is how they spend the day, hiding in the grasses out in the middle of this prairie with all these animals around. And let me tell you, as the cheetah moves around, the herd gives it a very wide berth. So they can run 70 miles an hour. A kid can tell you that, Don.
That's true.
Okay. But they are actually very wimpy. They are the wimps of the cat world, big cat world, I guess. So when they get when they're able to apprehend a prey item, they immediately drag it to cover. As you see here, these are in some dense bushes. And this was the only time I got both heads up, because usually one would stick its head up and keep watch while the other one preyed on the item. So this is a different family group. This mama cheetah had 3 cubs nearly grown with her, feeding, on a baby wildebeest. Finger licking good here. And this is the young cheetah after it's feasted on that wildebeest. A little blood on the face, but that's fine. And you can see from this picture just how lanky and long these cats are. And they were full of interesting expressions and fascinating to watch. Here's one lounging and just rolling over. Yeah, just like a house cat, really. Here's we saw 4 different instances. We saw cheetahs, all females with cubs, one pregnant female. And one last look at this magnificent predator. Okay, one shot of a leopard. Very hard to spot leopards. We were always constantly looking up in trees trying to spot them. And I don't know about you, but I find that gaze to be haunting and a little bit scary. I think we need to show some monkeys at this point. Here's the black and white colobus monkey. It's got a very long, fluffy tail and this sort of cape of long fur. Fascinating looking animal. I forgot to double check the ID on this one, but this was a species of monkey in Uganda with these gorgeous bright orange eyes. And this is the black-faced vervet monkey. And the young ones were really cute. Okay, so these are some weird birds I wanted to show you. This is the hammerkop. Did you know, Don, that recently this was it was hard to classify this animal. It's in its own family, and most recently it was determined it's most closely related to pelicans. It's also known, first of all, it's named for that hammer-shaped head, and it's known for its massive nest that's 5 feet across. A water bird that we would see occasionally. Now, I've always wanted to see a coursers. This is the double-banded courser, I believe. And they're not a shorebird, but they kind of look like them. And they have this unique, very upright stance. This is a freaked out looking female black-bellied bustard. Now, this is the Cory bustard, the largest bird or heaviest bird that can fly. Here's that male Cory bustard. displaying out on the savanna. You can see the white tail feathers and neck all fluffed out. And they always have kind of a jaunty air to them as they look very dignified strolling around the tundra. And this white is visible from a great distance away. This is the Namaqua dove. Now, I admit I don't pay that close attention to doves, but this is a very unusual looking one. Hardly even looks like a dove. The rufous-bellied sand grouse here. Chestnut-bellied? Okay, it's close. Now, sand grouse are very interesting in that they'll fly to water sources. They live in very arid regions, and they'll soak those chest and belly feathers, and that's how they take water back to their young. Another species is the black-faced sand grouse. And this is, look at the tail on this, first of all. This is a bird that lives in highland situations, and it's a lekking species. The males of this species get together, flatten down the grass, and all jump up and down to attract the female. Okay, check out the tail on this. This is ridiculous. It's the eastern paradise wida. Its tail is much bigger than the bird. And very interestingly, it doesn't raise its own chicks. It's a brood parasite. It lays its eggs in the nest of just one other species, this bird. Of all the other birds in Africa, it only lays its eggs in, let me see, what's that one called? In the nest of the green-winged petilia, that's what it's called. A gorgeous bird in its own right. So here's the paradise wida pinning down a grass head and savagely devouring it. It's the tundra after all. Here's a pin-tailed wida. It's less picky. It will nest, it's also a brood parasite, but it nests in several other birds' nests. Another showy species is the southern red bishop. This is a male. They like to get on very prominent perches and get very puffy. Look at this. Oh, come on. I think, was that a round borb of some kind? Check out the beak on this raven. This is the white-necked raven, common around people's dwellings, and it's got this huge, thick, very deep and impressive beak. Now, here's a nice example of convergent evolution. It's called the long spur. It looks like our meadowlark. Okay, here's the meadowlark, but it's not related. It's just they live in very similar habitats. They have similar lifestyles, and they happen to both have very similar patterns. This is a mouse bird, spectacled mouse bird. Just they're these ratty little mousy birds that they always tend to hang like this and hang upside down and perch in very odd manners. Okay, Don, I think I may have told you this before, but I always thought that turacos, a family endemic to Africa, there's various species, but I always thought they were in the most remote, most pristine rainforests and almost unattainable. But this great blue turaco was right in a park in one of the largest cities in Uganda. And this is the Ross's turaco, and it was right alongside a busy street in town next to a bunch of high school kids playing soccer. Magnificent birds. They're related to this species, the go-away bird. This is the white-bellied go-away bird, a large showy bird that is common across the tundra. Okay, we got Thanksgiving here. And I wanted to show you some turkey-like birds, okay? This is the helmeted guinea fowl, and very plump and common across the tundra. Here it is with its chicks.
Brood.
Yeah, it's got a whole brood. They look a lot like chickens. Here's the vulturine. We only saw these one time. Look at that plumage. They're magnificent. And this is the yellow-necked spur fowl. Oh, wait. Look at those thorns. I'm telling you, it's so much better with the thorns. And here's the yellow-necked spur fowl. vocalizing, calling. Now these birds love grass seed. And here's one devouring some grass seed. And this poor individual's like, oh, the grass seed's way up high. How am I supposed to look at the vertical leap on this thing? This is incredible. This guy should play for the Lakers. I mean, there it is, coming, grabs the grass seed way up high, pulls it down and devours it. And one last look at the spur fowl. I should say, yeah, okay. Here's some big African turkeys out on the plain with Savannah. The common ostrich, 2 males, 2 females. Let's take a closer look. The male has the black plumage and the more contrast, and the female is this grayish brown color. And they do get 7 feet tall. That particular individual had a piece of grass sticking out of its mouth and kept trying to get it out. And this one seems to have something stuck in its throat, a female with a large bump in its throat. Now, look at those drumsticks. I mean, look at that leg. Talk about a Thanksgiving feast. So this next picture is actually to scale. I did the math on this, and this is how big that drumstick would be if Don was holding it. I mean, look at it, it's huge. We're gonna finish up with the birds now. This is the best of the rest. I had a few other birds I really wanted to show you. The greater flamingo. Look at these beautiful birds flying in, landing. Found on large lakes in this part of Tanzania. Greater flamingo. And here's the amazing crowned crane. This is I remember growing up seeing these in zoos and just thinking I don't know, maybe they're easy to keep or something, but they're always like a big show. And look at that beautiful plume on the head. The yellow-billed stork, nice portrait. And they got some really showy swallows here. This is the lesser striped swallow. I'm not thrilled with the term lesser, but they're gorgeous. Here is a gorgeous cuckoo for you. We got some nice flowers, caterpillar. And the common rock thrush is another migrant that it comes down at that time of year from Europe. And I'm not even going to mention those wonderful thorns. Oh, man. Okay. Here we have the, what's this, the splendid starling? Yeah, splendid starling. Superb starling. A common bird throughout the savanna habitat. Here's one with a large bolus of larvae that's taking back to its young. Oh, that young bird is very happy here. This is the also gorgeous and similar Hildebrandt's starling. And our final bird for this section is the cordon bleu. Cordon bleu, the red-cheeked cordon bleu. Okay, so some people are asking, what about people? The Maasai live in, this is just one of many tribes in the area, but the Maasai live in a very traditional manner, and the areas surrounding Ngorongoro Crater, the conservation area, allow the people to live there in a traditional lifestyle. And you can see these are their villages, and they're herding people. Then this is their hut and an enclosure where they keep their livestock. Beautiful scene with a couple Maasai women walking through a field of flowers. This is the traditional dance where the warriors jump up and down very high in the air, and some portraits. So there are certain villages that normally it's considered uncouth to go around photographing folks without their permission, but there are certain villages that have opened themselves up where you can pay a fee and go in and take all the photographs you want, get interesting portraits like this, and they even invite the tourists to come out, wear the jewelry, and dance with them. And I must say, it looks very contrived. I don't know about you, but this just doesn't seem to fit to me. But as I said, they have a very traditional lifestyle, traditional huts, live very much as they have for centuries. So this is up in the mountains, and we were just very impressed by how much wood these ladies could carry. Look at the size of that. Now, this is hard work, folks. And speaking of hard work, here's these little kids. We were hiking. They don't see a lot of tourists up there. They are a little afraid of us. Look at those big grains, the sacks of grain on their heads. And they would carry these up and down the mountain. Like I would hike for 5 hours. I would be very impressed with myself up and down this mountain. And our guide said, those kids go up and down this twice a day with big grains of sacks of grain. So the urban centers were very crowded. And I just thought that was epitomized by this picture of 5 people, including a baby, on a very small motorcycle. Okay, we're going to finish up here with a couple special animals. We're going to go to the shores of Lake Victoria in Uganda and see the dinosaur bird. This is the shoe-billed stork. And the way to see that is to go out into the extensive papyrus marshes. You hire a guide with a boat to pull you along through the thick vegetation. And I'm pleased to say I was able to see this very rare species. Magnificent shoe-billed stork. It's also called the statue bird because it stands around longer than any other bird, motionless. And, you know, it was great to see this species, but I wouldn't mind seeing a little activity. So after seeing the shoebill, we hung out for a long time to see if it would do something. And during that time, we saw these wonderful jacanas with the very long toes, lily trotters, they're also called, the African jacana, walking along through the beautiful landscape. And I was able to see the shoe-billed stork using that massive bill to catch its favorite prey, the lungfish. Look at that big. So it swallowed that fish and flew off. And we chased it, believe it or not, to its chick. And that chick was begging for a meal. And sure enough, eventually the parent gave it that lungfish. And this is the look of a happy shoe-bill stork chick right here. And this is the parent trying to get the last remnants of that lungfish slime off of its massive beak. They need that massive beak to catch those birds, the big lungfish that they prefer to prey on. Okay, so I don't know if I mentioned, but Dawn didn't go to Uganda. She just did Tanzania, went home. My brother Yuri and I went up to see the mountain gorillas in Uganda. And that's how we're going to end this program tonight. Okay, in Uganda, the place to see the mountain gorilla is this small fragment of habitat, Bwindi Impenetrable Forest National Park. And you can see on this map, these are the different groups of gorillas that they keep very close track of. Each color is a family group. And you get to the entry point, and there's all these different family groups they have posted, and all the tourists get there, and the guides decide how to divide up the groups, who's going where. And we went and did this twice, I might add, different sides of the forest. And my brother would say, give us the easiest one to get to. And I would always say, give us the best one. But I think they were all really good. And we ended up going to some that were, because we heard horror stories of how you have to hike all day to try to find the gorillas. And, it was nice to not have to hike that far, I'll admit that. So here we're seeing we're going to go try to find the Bitura group. And this is called the impenetrable forest for good reason. Very steep slopes cloaked with dense vegetation is what we were walking through. And so the way this is done is there are rangers that go out and find the gorillas early in the morning that stay with the gorillas since basically dawn. They go out very early and find them to then lead the small groups of tourists to them. And they have machetes. They clear the way for us to get in to see the animals. We're only allowed to see them for exactly 1 hour. And each troop is only visited once every other day, I believe. Okay, so we were able to get quite close to the gorillas at times, but they weren't tame. They were wary and they moved away from us. And sometimes they were curious and approached. So we felt like they did act quite naturally. Oops. Okay. So this is a young female called Kanoel, and she's just kicking back and crossing her arms, looking up the sky. She had very bright orange eyes. Here's a young gorilla feeding on some ants on a tree that it's climbing. So mountain gorillas haven't been successfully kept in captivity. So the only way to see this magnificent animal is to go to Uganda, Rwanda, or Congo to see it in the wild. Here's a young male climbing a rope. There are a number of young animals that were just as wonderfully rambunctious and playful as you'd want a baby gorilla to be. Okay, they're climbing vines, swinging from vines. Look at this one, swinging from a vine upside down. You don't get any more baby gorilla than that, let me tell you. So clearly this was just such a magnificent experience. Here's a couple young males having some fisticuffs, fighting each other. This is Nguru, an adolescent male, being Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Big Stuff, and he's pounding his chest like a big silverback. And speaking of silverbacks, this is Rayumo. And this was a very powerful, aggressive individual. It actually saw our group and it did the incredible chest beating and charged us. And it was terrifying, even though I was on the other side and it was running away from me at the other people in the group. It was still very intimidating. Not so intimidating, that animal is, actually, you know, gorillas are very much like humans because here you see the gorilla picking its nose, looking at the booger, and then proceeding to eat the booger. So, it's just very similar. This behavior is common, especially in 9-year-old boys. That's where I've observed it. So this particular female's name means lover. And as we were leaving after our hour was up, she chased after me and tried to grab my ankle, which was just very scary and wonderful and exhilarating at the same time. So the ranger said that she's in love with me and doesn't want me to leave. Wasn't buying it, but great experience. And this is a young female whose name means, her name is Kajora, whose name means born in the drizzling rain. And I thought maybe they, having experienced the weather, they all could be named that. Okay. So one last look at a young female gorilla. Great experience. And at the end, we climb back out. Here's Yuri, happy, satisfied, but exhausted, just like all of you who have made it through this presentation. And this is the end. Okay. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks so much. That was incredible. Beautiful shots. I don't know if anybody has any questions. If you want to real quickly put them into the chat or speak up and ask.
We got 11. We got some questions. What month did
boy.
you travel?
Okay, so let me see if I can answer some of these questions here. What month did you travel? So we went in February and March, and that is a great time to go because it's after the short rains, turning the savanna green, but not making it too muddy. And that's when the Great Migration is centered on that Ndutu area where you can really drive around and access the huge herds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did the oxpecker want to peck for blood or peck so that the blood attracted flies?
So the oxpeckers, they wanted the insects, but they wanted the blood. Yeah, so they're drinking the blood. Okay.
I think just lots of great photos. Thanks so much. Loved every minute. Great. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming. I see a lot of familiar names here.
Yeah. Thank you all for attending.
Yeah. So Ram, there were 99 people watching you tonight. So that's a pretty good presence. And I think everyone loved it from the comments. I know I sure did.
Terrific. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I just finished putting it together 10 minutes before the show started. I will add that
it was really good, Ram.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, some would argue it's a little long, but I will point out that I had to narrow it down to this length from 100,000 pictures. I was there for over 30 days and took about 3,000 pictures a day. That's 100,000.
So your cousin Justin's here, and he says the ending photo of the elephants is similar to Grandpa's famous elephant photo, only from the back.
Okay, yeah, I know the one he's talking about. I'm glad he was able to join us.
Yeah.
Poppy Benson is even on.
Oh, how about that?
Right?
Yeah.
Thanks, Ron. Some shout outs.
Ram, we'll put this video on YouTube, and I'll send you a link so you can have it and save it wherever you want. You can view it over and over.
There's Larry.
So it's really fantastic. Well done.
It was.
Well, it's been loads of fun. So I think thank everybody for attending, and thanks so much to Ram and Dawn for entertaining us magnificently.